So just going to record. So we'll get started. So again, this document will be sent out. So, if anybody has any questions, feel free to wait for the PDF to come out. So I want to get started with kind of just some basic tournament information. We'll then get into the game rules themselves and then the COVID period. So tournament information, just so everybody's aware and you guys can tell your parents, there's no admission at any of our field sites. That includes Coca-Cola Park. We're able to make sure that any field that we're using, everybody is aware of the app by this point. If not, we'll talk about that. But all the field locations are on the app. Everybody should know where they're playing by now. If you have any questions on where you're playing or the address of the location, let me know. And the addresses and everything are right on the app. They're also going to be in this document. Parking, there's no charge for parking. I know some places for tournaments will have street parking. Some will have parking lots. Parents will just park their cars as they see fit. Two most important phone numbers I thought that we should all have is going to be obviously myself. If anybody needs or has any questions during the tournament, we will have field directors at each field. So it's not going to be, I obviously can't be at 8 fields as games are being played at the same time. So we're going to have a field director for each field. They will have a packet of the rules that are on them in case something does come up. I really don't foresee any major issues as we're using, PIAA rules as close as we can with just some modifications. But my cell phone number is in here. And then Frank D'Angelo, who has been assigning all the umpires, his cell phone number is in here. For some reason, if an umpire, wouldn't show up and our field director isn't able to get in touch with them, or for some reason our field director wouldn't be there at that point for some reason, I just wanted to make sure everybody had his number as well. I really don't foresee any big issues with umpires. The umpires are already set for every game, from Monday all the way through the following Monday in the championship. So for each field director, though, I will send, that group, that pool, the information for all the field directors. I didn't think we had to put everybody in here if it really wasn't pertinent to everybody. So everybody will get, if you're playing at Notre Dame, you'll get the field director from Notre Dame's information. The locations for all the 9 fields are listed here. They are also listed in the app. I will say for 2 of the fields, for Sammy Balliet and Fairview, I did put a little document in there about when you Waze it, exactly what to type in. Just makes it a little bit easier when you do put it in Waze, and it is in the app right now. Insurance, as I've talked about in a couple emails, the insurance is really going to be an umbrella policy that's going to cover the sites themselves, the players, the umpires, directors, and spectators. The main thing is, and I said this in an email, our insurance is only covering you guys for the week that we are playing. So I know there's some teams who are practicing or scrimmaging, which is totally, good with me. I just want to make sure everybody is aware that, our policy is only for that week. So if there are teams that want to get started this week before they start playing next week, our insurance wouldn't cover that. But I know some other schools are going out and getting their own just for, this period of doing so. So, if anybody needs or has any questions on that, I can certainly direct them to where we get our insurance from. But, other than that, I would just say, we are covered. If the field sites are covered, all the teams will have, their name listed on the policy. So that's all done. That's all set. Rosters, we talked about this. They're limited to 20 players per team. If you have an issue where you have, a 21st guy who was supposed to play football and in the next week, ruling comes down that football is not going to be played and you want to add them, I have no problem making sure that we can add your players. We just cannot add from another team or, someone who says, oh, they're transferring in, or guest players. It really is supposed to be about your 2020, team. So it really should reflect that team. I do know, and I'm just going to send this out, I do know there are players from some of the teams who aren't participating who have reached out to me and are reaching out to some coaches. I just ask that we really do follow these rules. As much as I feel bad that we can't allow some players to play in the event, I really just didn't think it's fair that, some teams that aren't able to play, that some, other teams are just picking and choosing of adding them. I did allow them, if there's a team in the Lehigh Valley, so Deer Northern Lehigh, if somebody who's in one of the two conferences that is not participating, I did tell their coaches that their seniors would be allowed to come on senior day to be honored and, for that. So, they might not be able to participate, but I did say to them that they are going to be allowed. Umpires, each field will have 2. Championship game will have 4. Once we get into the COVID-19 kind of rules and guidelines, we'll talk a little bit more about umpiring. But you can expect PIAA guys. Frank D'Angelo filled it within a couple of days. I really don't foresee that being, an issue. And then obviously the 4 for the championship. Baseballs, one of the important things about this guideline is teams are responsible for baseballs, just like you guys would be. Home teams at high school games would be responsible for providing baseballs. What we're asking is both teams bring baseballs with them. We'll start with 2 from each team and then kind of, go from there. If we can use the Spalding high school ball that was going to be used this year, I did have a couple teams reach out to me and said they still had some Wilson A1010s left over from years past that obviously they weren't able to use because of high schools going to a new game ball. I think it's totally fine if we would incorporate using those 2, especially to help some of these guys get rid of, a ball that essentially they can't use. So I'm totally fine with that. Let's make sure that we're not just throwing in bucket balls, though. I think for the tournament, one of the pieces that I want to make sure that we do have is that, we are providing, some safe equipment for everybody, as well as, some good stuff. So, I had a couple coaches say, I only have 1 box left. Can I throw in a ball and then I'll throw in a couple BP balls? The goal is not that we're just throwing in, BP balls. We should have enough game balls to go around. I did put in here about field directors not being responsible. Just make sure there's going to be games coming on the field right after, there's 11 a.m. game, then there's a game right after. So just make sure the players are cleaning the dugout, grabbing their own stuff. We will talk about how teams are going to enter the dugout. But I do think, our field directors are really just volunteers. And the last thing I want is, a volunteer to be questioned on, lost equipment or anything like that. So just try to make sure we're promoting our guys to make sure that, they pick up after themselves. Important rule here, and this is really coming from a lot of the tournament venues that we've seen, is that there will be no use of batting cages at any venue. And a lot of tournaments are adopting this rule as well. It's just creating a lot of traffic, you could say, at fields when other people essentially are already on site. So our goal is to limit this number of 250 to make sure that we're staying within the guidelines. One of the ideas that we felt was really important was not having the batting cages open, because what that's going to do is going to bring, the next team to show up, coaches, most likely parents. And what we're trying to do is really make sure that anybody who wants to come see their team play, meaning their fans, team personnel, obviously players and coaches, we want them to be allowed to be there. We don't want to have to get close to a limit because we have 3 or 4 teams at a venue, and just because 2 teams are showing up early to hit. So there will be no hitting in a batting cage before the game, and there will be no infield outfield. The main reason is once we get to the COVID guidelines, we'll talk about time limits and everything like that, so that we can actually maintain, a distance of making sure that when one game's over, they're allowed, their fans and their players are allowed to leave the facility and then let the next team in. Uniform and cleats, everybody should know by now, we're obviously not allowed to wear a high school uniform, jersey, more than anything in this. They are allowing us to wear team hats because the players essentially own those. So you guys can have your teams wear whatever hat they were going to wear in the spring of 2020. They are also allowing, if a player absolutely needs to get a pair of game pants that they might not have personally owned, that they would have to wear them. The only thing I ask is that I don't care if you want to wear white or gray or navy blue or red or black, whatever, but just as long as everybody's wearing the same thing on your team. So I don't think this should be an issue. I have seen in travel baseball many times, though, one guy's wearing an orange jersey with white pants, the next guy's wearing an orange jersey with gray pants, next guy's wearing, orange on black pants. And I just think does take away a little bit from the game itself. So I would just say, whatever you guys want to do with game pants is totally cool with me. Just make sure your teams know. There really should not be any issue with teams wearing the same color shirt. We basically got 29 different color shirts. They only had 29 available. So, I mean, it would be a very small percentage chance that a team who got the same color would even play. I tried to, it would definitely, they're not in the same pools. I tried to make sure that, you know, if by any means that it would be, so it wouldn't happen that way. So you should not play any team wearing the same color shirt that you guys have. Obviously, foul balls. I just want to, you know, put a caveat out there for you guys, because you guys are using and putting, you know, supplying the balls, just to make sure that we have guys, you know, trying to get them. You know, I don't want anybody to run out of baseballs at any point. So hopefully, you know, you guys can help us out, making sure the players or, you know, parents, whoever is getting that. At tournament sites, and this is one of the important things that, you know, is kind of important in this whole thing, is there will not be trainers at every site. So just like a tournament that, you know, we're used to in travel baseball, there's not an exact trainer at all sites. However, we will have first aid kits and we will have ice on all sites. So, you know, if you know, somebody gets hit by a pitch in the shoulder, he needs a bag of ice, we'll have that. Somebody gets bit or something, or needs a Band-Aid for whatever reason, we will have that. Somebody breaks their leg, that's a 911 call, and all local EMS and county police have been notified of the area that we're playing at. So if we're playing, you know, at Bethlehem at Freemansburg, the local police know that we're going to be there, as well as EMS, just in case we have to get in a situation where we would have, you know, some sort of crazy injury. Concessions and bathrooms, pretty easy. You know, bathrooms will be open at all sites. Concession stands are going to be at the discretion of the host site. Some are going to have it open and have, you know, different foods and drinks. Some might not be available at all. I would obviously just make sure that your players are bringing their own drinks. We're not supporting team coolers. So I ask, you know, you guys don't take the reins on bringing the team cooler and everybody taking drinks. That's one thing that we're against due to our COVID policy that we'll see. So players can bring their own drinks. Obviously, you know, we'll throw the stuff away. Hopefully they can put their names on them just to make sure that they're keeping themselves drinking their own bottle. Awards will be handed out basically at the end of the event. So championship team will get a trophy, and then we'll have an MVP that the winning team will pick. So that's going to be, you know, obviously on Monday night at Coca-Cola Park. If anybody gets ejected, you're essentially ejected for the whole tournament. You know, I think at this point everybody's just going to be geared up just to get on the field. So I really don't foresee us needing to even go into this. I just ask, you know, obviously, if we get in a situation, a bad call or whatnot, let's just make sure we're doing everything in the right manner with the COVID policy. The last thing I want is, you know, a coach and an umpire getting into it. I saw it today in the Pirates game, you know, screaming, yelling back and forth, you know, coach has to throw a mask on, this and that. You know, I think obviously we can have conversations, but at the same point, I think we need to maintain, you know, an understanding of why we're doing this and really what it's for. Finally, inclement weather, you know, without knowing what the weather is going to do for us, obviously we're going to use the judgment of the field directors who are there. If it's absolutely pouring or it's calling for something and we can't play, we're going to move everything to the next play date. So the next possible play day. So, you know, if we get canceled on Monday, we would move all that games that don't get played or get suspended because, you know, where the game would go right to Tuesday at the same site. The only issue with that is there was one site who had games scheduled on Tuesday and Thursday. So at the, you know, if needed, we might just have to change one or two sites at the very most. But most of the sites we have for the whole week. So, you know, if you get canceled Monday, you just go right to Tuesday, same times. If we have to adjust something, we obviously can look at that, but I really, I don't foresee that being, you know, a major issue unless, you know, we get there and we have to figure something out. So the game rules themselves. So this is kind of the bulk of exactly where, you know, you guys can kind of make some decisions on. as you guys go through. And some of it is open-ended to allow you guys to have some freedom while you guys are playing hopefully we're promoting as much playing of as many players as possible. So we're going to use NFHS high school baseball rules. I did have to put a few exceptions though, which we're going to kind of go over. So the first one is time limit. So there's going to be a 2-hour and 15-minute time limit for all pool play games, meaning we will not start a new inning once the time limit hits. It's not a drop dead. So it doesn't mean that at 2:15, if you're in the bottom of the 7th and you have, bases loaded, nobody out, that we're going to stop the game. You're going to be allowed to finish the full inning. So if you start an inning and it hits, say the 6th inning is over at 2 hours and 14 minutes, you guys would start the next inning and you'd play the full inning. So at that point, in reality, you're really not missing. The only way you don't play a full 7-inning game is if you don't start the 7th inning by 2:15. And I really don't foresee that being too big of an issue. There will be no time limit for playoff games. At that point, I feel like we should play a full 7 innings. If we get in a crazy high-scoring game, for whatever reason, I want to make sure that we do have all time allowed to be able to get that whole game in. Official time will be kept by the umpires. It's going to be the base umpire who will be the official timer. It's going to start right when the conclusion of the pregame meeting. So the coaches go out. You guys are going to, 6 feet away from each other with masks on, talk about the game rules for the field site. Once that meeting's over, we're hoping that the home team can take the field and get the game moving. There are most fields that don't have lights. So, we really want to start that 5 o'clock game by 5 o'clock. So, we are stressing, the goal isn't that we break the huddle and then we take another 15 minutes to get on the field. So I did ask the umpires to really push this. Once that meeting's over, we really want to try to stay on time and get the next game going, because it might be the first game that day, but it would have a chain reaction to what will be that last game. And obviously, we don't want to start that game, much later than 5:30, just to make sure they would have enough time to get the full game in. If the home team is batting and is ahead when the time limit is reached, the game will immediately end. Obviously, the player can finish at bat, meaning, it's the bottom of the 7th and bottom of the 6th, home team is winning and the time limit hits. There's no reason for them to finish that inning just to call it for the next before the 7th. So the batter can finish and then that game would be called. If there is a tie at this point, so 2:15 hits and we just finished a full inning, so we just finished, say, the 6th inning, and 2:15 hits, we'll go immediately to extra innings. And extra innings is going to be runner on second with nobody out. The runner is going to be anybody who's not in the current lineup, so anybody that you guys want to put on your bench. If you're batting everybody, which we'll talk about in a little bit, if you're batting everybody, it could just be your last batted out. So that's the way we're going to run it, hoping that it does encourage guys and teams to score, so that we don't have games going 9, 10, 11, 12 innings, again, due to our time limit policy, as well as, and I just hope everybody is respectful at this point, we really don't want 3 or 4 teams at the same venue at the same time. So the goal is not that we have an 11-inning game going on, the next team's waiting, their fans are waiting, and now we just added another 100 people to what we're really trying to contain as 250, and we're going to be hard on that 250 number. So for home team, it's already set. It was automatically placed in the Tourney Machine app. So if you guys have, I've sent it out. If not, it's in this document. You guys will be able to just click right through there. If the first team who's listed is the away team, the second team listed is the home team. So everybody will know going into it what they're, if they're the home team or if they're away team for that game. We will have pitching rules and pitching restrictions. So it's right here. I will say there's a couple things I want to touch base on to make sure that everybody is hearing it from me. And again, if this opens questions for anyone, totally good with answering them. If anybody feels necessary once they get the document to kind of go through it, see something that may be a gray area that they're not sure of, feel free to email me and then we can certainly discuss. So I think this is where we want to really make sure that we're just more so using common sense rather than even going into these rules. I don't foresee anybody really needing to take this packet out to see what the rules say, compared to just knowing guys haven't really been playing besides for travel baseball for about a month that we've been playing travel baseball. So, I really don't want anybody to be throwing 100 plus pitches. So we put some guidelines in here for everybody. I do think, they're reasonable to be able to help the teams who might not have a ton of arms to be able to get through 3 games in essentially 3 days. At the same point, I wouldn't want anybody to be thrown out there out of need-based and not have anything in place to kind of at least, shut that guy down. So just like normal high school rules, with the pitch counts, if you get a situation where you're at, pitch number 79 and the guy's at a 1-1 count and he needs to finish the batter, he totally can finish the batter. That's not a problem. The one thing I did want to touch base on is pitchers who do throw in the limit of 1 to 25 of this bottom limit, they would be allowed to throw in the second game of a doubleheader, and still they must adhere to the same 25 pitch count that was in the first game. Meaning, if you have somebody who closes the game and throws 15 pitches, and you guys play another game right after that, 7th inning comes around, and you want to throw them out there for another, 15, 20, 25 pitches is the limit, you may do so. So that rule is in place. So anybody who wants to do that. The pitch counts, though, is really going to be about you guys kind of taking it on your own. We're not going to have, coaches and scoreboards that are going to have everything on there that says how many pitches guys thrown. I really don't foresee this being too big of an issue. I really hope that, we can understand, we're counting pitches for our sake. Not to say we're only going to use the honor system, but at the same point, if teams are using Game Changer and you guys want to go back and forth and check it with scorekeepers, that's great with me. I just didn't want to put it on anybody because some people are playing at 11 a.m. on certain days. Their scorekeeper or parents might be at work. So I don't want to put any more strain on the coaches to really have to do something else rather than, coach their teams. Again, pool play, pitch counts are going to be held by the teams. I would hope that nobody's going to umpires and asking them how many pitches are being thrown. That's not what they're there for. And they're not there to interpret any rules. The rules are really between the coaches. If you have a question, we can go right to the field director. Field director can certainly come to me. Again, I really don't foresee this being too big of an issue. It's pretty spelled out. Starting the game, we must have at least 8 players. At that point, if a team doesn't have 8 when we show up, because of the regulations that we have having to play due to time limit constraints, we can't just sit there and wait for 10 guys to show up an hour late and then push everybody else back. If you have 8, we'll start with 8. The goal would be that we would have a 9th guy added or more when they come. If there is an issue where somebody is waiting, somebody, I'll make a judgment call on it and say, hey, we're going to give them 5 more minutes to get them there. It's not going to be much though. So, everybody has a schedule right now. I don't foresee this, most guys are having rosters of 15 plus, most guys even up to the 20s. So I really don't see this being an issue, but I just wanted to put it in here in case the situation would come up that we could certainly go back to it to make sure everybody feels in the right manner of knowing when we're going to get started. So the hitting lineup, this is really important to me because one of the focuses for me is I want to try to promote as much playing for the players. So I tried to make the rules as flexible as possible with this. So in pool play, you guys can bat as many as you want using both the DH and EH designations. EH would just mean extra hitter. So if you guys want to bat 13 guys and one of them is going to DH, for a pitcher or whatnot, you guys can do that. You can DH for anybody in the lineup. So if that helps you guys get more playing time for guys, I think it's a great way for, especially in pool play, to make sure that we have the chance of getting a lot of these guys as much playing time as possible. To me, that's what this is all about, and this event is about trying to get the kids on the field and doing so in a competitive manner. So to give you guys kind of some free reins on that. Defensive substitution is totally free in pool play, meaning you don't have to go and change your batting lineup if you want to, not hit one of your players, but let them play the field for 7 innings. That's completely fine to me. I honestly promote that. It's something I do in travel baseball. gives me the ability to play some guys without, having to hit, 18 or 19 guys. At the same point, let's just make sure that the other teams are knowing what's going on. I don't think for defensive substitutions, nobody needs to go over and tell the other coach, hey, this guy's going here. It's completely free, so it shouldn't matter. If you do change the lineup, though, at any point, that would be when you would want to go and make sure you let the other team know. As well as we will have a PA announcer at almost every site. I'm waiting for one field, but other than that, we'll have a PA announcer at all sites. So, again, it just gives it that baseball feel to make sure, they're knowing who's up at bat. It might be one of the seniors' last at bats or only at bats of the tournament. Hopefully, we get his name right. So, if you guys could just make sure we're checking in with PA announcers and everything like that, that'd be great. Re-entry rule, basically the same that you guys are accustomed to. Only thing I put in here was about the DH and the EH. If you start somebody at the EH position and put a sub in for them, they can always go back and be re-entered. They could be re-entered in that same EH position that you had them in. Again, it's really all made so that you guys have flexibility of playing as many guys as possible, throughout the event. Once we get to the playoffs, so we're going to go standard, PIAA high school baseball rules. So at that point, from on Friday on, we'll be, looking at, lineups of 9, changes coming through. Defensive subs will be handled exactly like a normal sub in a high school baseball game, where they would change a lineup, so that would go right through the next, the other coach. Courtesy runners, pitcher and catcher only. Maybe at any time that you guys want to, again, with the time limit, I do ask that we are understanding of, trying to get the game moving. At the same point, I did not want to make this mandatory because we will have college coaches here on site. I easily have probably 25 to 30 guys who had asked me for a packet in advance with your rosters, which is why I was asking you guys for rosters. And they wanted them so they can bring them with them and show up to the games. So if you have a catcher or a pitcher who can really run, I didn't want to make it, mandatory that you had to take them out. So totally on you guys. If you guys want to do it, if you're not going to courtesy run for your catcher, just ask, have a backup catcher ready. When we go out in the field, pitcher can start getting loose with somebody else with, the helmet or the glove and the mask. And then kind of moving on from there as the guy gets loose. Intentional walks are definitely allowed. They're not going to count against pitch counts. We're not going to make the guy throw. So it would be automatic, signal to the umpire for pitches. We'll put them on. Again, that will not count for pitch count against the pitcher. Official game in case we would get rain in the middle of the game. So this would happen. Umpire calls me and says, or field director would call me or amongst themselves say, listen, we gave it, 45 minutes. We gave it an hour. It's still pouring. There's no way we're getting back on the field today. So at that point, if it's after 5 innings, the game would be complete. If we're not at that point, it says 4.5 innings, obviously, if the home team is winning. So at that point, though, if we're in the 3rd inning, then we would go to a suspended game and go right to the next day, pick up right where that is. Same thing with a tie game. And, say it's the 6th inning, tie game. I don't want any ties. I think that, the way that we want this to work out is we want wins and we want that head-to-head to be the ultimate tiebreaker for playoff positioning if needed. So at this point, we would have, if it's a tie score, we'd just suspend it, finish it the next day from where you guys left off, 3-3 in the 6th. That's where we pick up and just move forward from there. I would say try to make sure we're available at all times on these days. So, one of my fears is on Monday we get rained out the 5 o'clock game, and the next day, we can get the field, but we get it at say 2 o'clock. So all I would say is we're going to do our best to reschedule the same time that it would have been the day before. At the same point, though, it's going to be a call from me to the coaches and say, hey, listen, we do have the field, but we have it at 3 o'clock rather than 5. Can you guys play at 3 o'clock? And I ask that we are somewhat flexible so that, we can make sure that we are getting the games in. I want to make sure that, the kids are getting at least their 3 games in. And then when we get to playoffs, then we can be a little bit more particular with our times as we have less teams. Definitely recommend, a scorekeeper on both sides. And I just ask, it's not going to be up to the umpire. I don't want anybody asking the umpire what the score is. Teams can keep their book. All I ask is that the teams go back and forth with the scorekeeper, just make sure the score is right. Again, this is not going to be held by the umpire. So just between the teams, we'll go by the home team book. The field director is going to get the score at the end of the game. I would like them to confirm with both teams, which is something we're going to talk about. Hey, the final score was 6-5, because there are tie-breaking scenarios that we need to know exactly the right score. So both teams are going to need to say, yes, this final score was 6-5. So I do ask that, everybody's involved in that. And then the tournament director will send me a text. We'll say, here's the game, here's the score. I can update it on the Tourney Machine app immediately after the game's over. It's very, very quick. You'll be able to check up to the minute standings. And I put on the app that it's going to count runs for and runs against. So runs scored will be in the first column, runs against will be in the second, mainly because those are going to be what we're using as tiebreakers, which we'll get to down the line. Dugout rule, just like normal baseball, let's make sure that we don't have buckets outside of the fence on the playing field. I do want to make sure we're aware, though, any COVID regulation that's below in the COVID part, that's going to supersede anything of any dugout. There will be rules and regulations posted in every dugout and on the field of our COVID-19 rules. So as we get closer to that part, we'll hear more about it. But, I as much as the dugout, I've asked the umpires to make sure, guys aren't in the front section of the dugout or whatnot. The main thing is the COVID part, not so much as just like the dugout area. I think this is pretty standard. Jewelry, no metal necklaces, anything that's not covered in here. I'm going to leave it up to us as the tournament committee to make the final ruling. This would be, something that is unforeseen that we have to make some crazy decision on. I don't think that's going to come to any issue. So playoffs. So again, everybody is in a pool of 4. So we're going to take the top 2 team in each pool to then form this 16-team single elimination bracket. The seeds 1 through 8 will be the winning pools. So we could have, a situation where a pool winner was 2-1, and another team from another pool was the second seed at 2-1 and gave up less runs. However, the teams who win their pools, so the number 1 team in each pool is first going to be 1 through 8. At that point, then we'll use 9 through 16 will be by record and then by runs against. Anybody who's tied by runs against would then go to runs scored. So if we have a team that's 2-1, another team that's 2-1, and they both finished second in their pool, and then they both gave up 11 runs, then they would go to runs scored. Say that's 15 and the other team's 14. Obviously 15 would go ahead, 14 would be behind them. If that particular part is tied as well, we'll then go to a coin flip. At that point, both teams are in the playoffs. We would say, hey, we're now going through a coin flip between teams, seeds 11 and 12. And we flip the coin, and we would sit there and just say heads is Easton or heads is, Notre Dame, tails is, Bangor, whoever it is. We flip the coin, and we'll make the seeding from there. So preparing to attend the event here is kind of where we get into our COVID part. So all I ask is that at this point, anybody who has any questions on the game part certainly can ask any game part questions. This is kind of the bulk of the meeting and why we're here, though. I will say, and a couple things, and there are some media members on here, so I just want to be careful with my words. But the main thing here is that we understand. After I watched the softball event, and the softball event ran really well, there was some pictures, there was some posts that I saw from parents, media, and whatnot that really did not promote what we're trying to promote in a safety way. And I'll say it's one of the reasons that I wanted to make sure St. Luke's was involved. And to me, it's honestly, it was a concern, not only for me, but also from some of the sponsors we have when they saw some of the stuff that was going on. I really, really ask that we are not putting the tournament or, me or any of our sponsors in a weird way by allowing certain things to be done. Team huddles, hugging back and forth. I understand human behavior is certainly part of this. At the same point, I think if we all kind of take some responsibility, especially for our teams, it definitely will help limit some of those concerns that I have, and some of the concerns that I think others have around. And the last thing I want is, the headline picture in one of the newspapers or one of the videos is, the team dogpiling on home plate, right? And as much as I love the concept of excitement and team, at this point, I do want to make sure that everybody's aware that for the situation that we're in, to even be playing this event, I really wasn't sure about, a month ago. And now that we're here, I think we have the right plan in place. I think we're doing everything we possibly can. At the same point, though, I really, really ask that you guys are an extension of this plan and really going out and speaking to your players and saying, not only are some of the stuff recommended, but it really needs to happen because, I foresee, how it would work out if it doesn't. And I don't want the tournament to get shut down. And that would be a fear. The softball tournament was only a couple days, so it happened very quickly. If for some reason we see a ton of, Monday and Wednesday pictures and teams not doing it, and, we would get shut down, there's a chance we wouldn't be able to play Friday, Sunday, and Monday. And that's literally the entire purpose of this whole thing, is to really, hopefully crown a champion. So I do ask that this part is definitely understood. Again, if we have questions, let me know. So obviously, I think everybody has seen this kind of statement everywhere. So we obviously want to make sure we're staying up to date with the CDC state and local guidelines that are out. This is ever changing. Certainly on Friday, for all we know, Tom Wolf's going to get on TV and say we're going from 250 to 150. In the green phase now is, we're only allowing 150 people in one location. So we'll be staying up to date with that. We'll be adhering to everything that's in there. I just ask, because this is fluid, we might have to make some changes on the fly. If that happens, you'll get an email from me and just say, hey, some news came out, and this is where we're going with this. One of the main key components, and I sent this out, a couple of days ago, is this bolded line. So all players, coaches, tournament staff, umpires, and media members who are coming to the field must fill out a tournament COVID health screening form. If anybody clicked on this form, you'll see it's literally 4 questions. All it says is, your email address, because you get a copy of it. So I wanted to put the email addresses on there so everybody puts their email, because not only do I get a copy that says the answers, but the person would also get a copy themselves. So they have record of what they said in this. And then it is allowed and it is able to be used on any mobile phone. It's on the tournament website, which is in this. It's just right here below, lvrisingstars.com/tournament. I just put it on our website rather than buying a new domain and whatnot. I just added a page on my Rising Stars website. It has all the information's on there. The schedules are on there. The COVID information on there. This rule book is going to be attached on there. There's a rules part. But the main reason I did it was so that there's another way to access this form. So it's going to be accessible in the app as well. So I really don't foresee anybody saying, oh, I couldn't find it. It's going to be everywhere. I just ask that you guys as coaches are promoting this to your players. So when they get to the field, first question is, did you fill out the form? I will say, I'm not going to sit back and be able to sit there and say, hey, Northampton has 20 players on the roster. I'm clicking off all 20 guys in the back end and doing that because all 643 players that are in the tournament are playing on, Monday and Wednesday. So it's going to be impossible for me to go back and see all 643. What I will say, though, is if I see that nobody from a whole team has filled this out, it clearly means that, the coaches aren't promoting it. It clearly means that it wasn't told to the players. And at that point, not to be, anything bigger than what it is, but at that point, we would take the team out of the tournament. And to me, they can't play in the tournament if we're not getting – it's a simple form that I filled it out on my phone. It literally took me 8 seconds to do so. So I really – it's yes, no questions. Here's your name, here's the high school you're playing for, and here's 4 questions. So I really do hope that you guys can promote this. and really just make sure we're staying on top of this. I think it's a great way that shows that we are doing everything we possibly can to keep the players safe, because at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal. We keep the players safe. We give you guys a competitive atmosphere to play. Obviously, you've seen this, adults 65 or older, especially with those who have medical conditions. We encourage not to attend. I understand grandparents are going to want to come. I'm certainly not going to tell anybody they have to leave if they're a certain age. At the same point, though, obviously any guidance that we can give, we're going to have all of this stuff posted. If anybody in your household is not feeling well, we don't want the players to show up. All this stuff is on the questionnaire, and if they would answer yes, it says don't come. So I don't foresee this, being too big of an issue. A couple things just so you guys will see it. I do recommend everybody has some hand sanitizer, chairs if it's a fan. And you guys can please promote this out to your parents. Some venues may not allow fans to sit on the bleachers due to the COVID-19 regulations that they have in place. So please make sure when you talk to your parents, if they're anticipating on coming to the game, let them know it's probably more beneficial to bring their own chairs. Even if you know that they have stands or whatnot, they might not allow them to be played there. I don't have that information right now. I did have some say we're looking into their own policy, and that was one thing that they did say that they may put in place. Each field will have hand sanitizers in both dugouts. I will say we're going to do everything we can to kind of make it safe. I don't know if anybody saw Anthony Rizzo the other day, but he pulled out of his back pocket. If we have guys doing that on the field, totally fine with me. Masks must be worn at all times by players, spectators, team personnel, and tournament officials when entering the facility and when you can't social distance yourself. So this will mean in the dugout. So if you have 20 players and you have 10 guys on the field and you guys are in a dugout, that is not allowing you guys to have 10 players and coaches to be socially distancing. We are mandatory mask wearing. It's not a policy that's coming from just me. That's something that's coming from guidelines that we need to set in place so that we can run the event. I do ask that you guys are behind this and you guys are promoting this to your players. I've been at many tournament games where this has been the case, where it's a must and not a should. And by the third inning, everybody's sitting next to each other, no masks are being worn. Again, I just think for us to play in this game and this event, it might just mean, we have to make sure that we're staying on top of some of this stuff to make sure that, we're aware. The health screening form, again, I ask that you guys are pushing that. Obviously our Zoom call is part of this. Our field directors will have a call knowing that what they need to oversee. I really don't foresee this stuff being too hard if everybody just kind of is an extension of this plan and we're all working together to kind of enforce some of this stuff. Obviously, we're using some community fields for host sites. Some of them may have their own rules, like I said before. At each site, I do have a 2x3 foam board with rules and guidelines of COVID being put up at every field site we're using on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then at Coca-Cola Park on Sunday and Monday. So you will see it's the basic guidelines that are in here. It does have the form address on it that says where you can find the form. So, if a kid says, I just can't find the form, I don't know where to go, they can take their phone, they can go right up to that board, type in the address, and be able to find it and then fill out the form. If a game is currently being played on the field, all spectators, including families, for the next game should remain in their cars until the game on the field is over and the team leaving the field has exited. Players are allowed to enter the complex upon arrival, coaches as well. So what I'm saying at this point is there's no two teams ever coming to the field. So all of our games that are double headers only means one team comes. So we made sure the schedule meant that we would never get in a situation where we have 100 people coming to the venue at one time if there's another game going on. So all we're asking is if the 11 a.m. game is being played, one team is coming to play at 2 o'clock, rather than all of the parents coming out and sitting and watching the game and whatnot. All we're asking is the players are obviously welcome to come in. The coaches are welcome to come in. They can, be able to get themselves in the complex so they can get on the field. At the same point, though, just asking that we can promote out to the parents. When that game's over, say it's Parkland versus Allen. Once Parkland versus Allen is over, say Allen leaves, their game's over, and they were only playing one game that day. Allow all of the Allen players and parents to leave. There's plenty of time in between games. Then, the next group, say they're playing Whitehall next, Whitehall parents can then come on the field. So that, we don't have a situation where we're getting to that point of 250 people. And there's some games that are going to be tight because of when they're playing and rivalry games and whatnot. The last thing we want is to have to tell people that they have to, they're not allowed in and it's their son who's playing. And because that we have parents from another team, just sitting there trying to, watch a game for no reason. So I do ask that we're aware of this. I'm really trying to keep these at 250 and below. And I think this is just a way to help that. Teams that play a doubleheader, you will stay in the dugout that you are at. The new team coming on the field won't be allowed in the dugout until the team from the previous game has exited and the field director goes down and will let you guys know when you guys are welcome to enter. They will be wiping down, whether it's a bench, whether it's, however, the dugout is set up. We will have our field director just wiping it down, wiping down the hand sanitizers in between games, different little things that we can do. I do ask that you guys are really, really promoting your players to clean up the dugouts, though, because we have games coming on the field right afterwards, that we can maintain, a quick transition. Dugouts are clean. We can kind of go wipe them down, and then we can move on to the next game. Again, obviously, we talked about this. There's no entry, so that should not be an issue. There really should be no handing of cash unless the concession stand is open. We're really trying to stay away from any cash being held. So that's one of the main reasons about no entry. Plus, I didn't want to charge anybody really, a parent anyways, to come see their child play. Again, no team coolers, so please don't bring a team cooler for your group. No sunflower seeds and no gum. We want to keep, obviously with masks being worn, it wouldn't really be practical, but we want to keep as less spitting, as less projection out. So no seeds, no gum, and no team coolers. Please try to not have, and really they should not be, sharing equipment if they don't have to, especially some, food and drink. I would hope that you guys can just, make sure that they're bringing their own stuff. And then obviously, let's try to follow the social distancing guidelines as much as we possibly can. During the event, obviously, you guys have seen this. The one thing I will say is we're really trying to, no shaking of hands or touching. If anybody has been watching Major League Baseball, they're really into this whole foot shake where they kind of click cleats. That's totally cool. No handshakes after the games. You guys can just get to the first or third base line that you guys are playing at. If you're in the third base dugout after the game's over, you guys would run up to the third base line, tip your cap to the team that you guys just played. You can wave, just no handshakes. We're obviously trying to eliminate as much congregation as possible. If we could, and I really want to put this, and I ask the umpires to put this on here as well. No dogpiling. I understand there's going to be playoff games. Going to a championship game is certainly cool. No dogpiling. And if somebody hits a home run, I don't want, the 19 guys running out of the dugout and everybody, going nuts at home plate. I have asked the umpires to strictly enforce that. So if they see the guy start running out at home plate, they're going to tell them to get right back in the dugout. And I just ask you guys, again, I know human nature and human behavior is certainly able to take over at most of this stuff. However, I do ask you guys that we can help promote this as much as possible, because I do think it's something that doesn't need to happen, for an instance like this year, just totally, unprecedented times that we're in, that, I just think it would be a bad look for everybody involved, and it really doesn't give a benefit for anything. We will have, again, the PA systems. I will have the PA announcers going through the COVID stuff before each game and between innings, just as a reminder. If you can't social distance yourself, please wear a mask. If you go to the bathroom, please wear a mask. Just as a reminder that where we're going at. We've talked about the 215. Obviously, that's in there. We talk about masks. Please, again, let's try to limit as much contact as possible. Base coaches, try to, please maintain a 6-foot distance. If you have a runner on third base and you're coaching third base, just ask that you guys aren't, whispering in their ears. If you're going to, I'd ask that you put a mask on, just to be safe. Obviously cleaning up. Pitchers, this is a note that we do want to make sure you guys are aware. Pitchers are allowed to bring a moist cloth in their back pocket instead of touching their mouths. Instead of trying to eliminate, I've seen this at many venues, trying to eliminate, a pitcher going to their mouth where they want to lick their hands, blowing their hand for whatnot. We're gonna take that out. But if they want to put just a moist cloth, they'd obviously have to be off the rubber. They can go touch the moist cloth. Let's hope that it's not pine tar, and we'll get in a situation from there. Final 4 points to this document is about the umpiring. So I talked to Frank D'Angelo, and what we agreed on was umpires will position themselves where they see fit and where they see comfortable. The reasoning for this is if an umpire is calling balls and strikes and they don't feel comfortable at this point being behind the catcher, they will call balls and strikes behind the pitcher. I will say this, coming from Frank, he feels that it's going to be about 90% of the umpires are going to be behind home plate, and you're going to see about normal positioning of umpires as you guys would normally see in a high school baseball game. Home plate umpire will be behind the catcher. First base, base umpire will be, where they need to be positioned, wherever the circumstances take them. Conversations between coaches and umpires, this starts at the ground rules. This would also go to a rule question. Anything that needs to be, I just asked that we all maintain a 6-foot distance. I did ask the umpires to do this as well. So if they need to come to a dugout or come to a coach, I did ask them, that we always do this. Pre-game meetings, of course, will be masks on and 6 feet apart. And finally, we don't need lineup cards for the umpires. This is going to be, between the coaches. Again, they don't need to know if you're batting 15 guys and who's coming in and whatnot. To me, they're there to umpire the game. They're not there to police the teams on wearing masks. They're not there to police you guys on who's batting when, and anything like that. So the goal here would be you guys are all taking care of that part. The umpires can really maintain their COVID responsibilities of making sure that they're being safe and being in the right position, as well as umpiring and officiating the game. So that's the end of this document. Again, it's a 14-page document that you guys will all be emailed. So if anybody has any questions or they want to go back and print a copy of this and keep it on them, for the games, that's totally great. Each field site will have one on them. So the tournament director or the field director at each site will have one of these on them. So if there is a case with a pitch count or there's a case with a rule, we'll just use this document as our final rule. If you have any questions, don't feel the need to ask them right now. But if you want to, send an email and just say, hey, some clarity, certainly would be, easily able to give some clarity. If it's something that I see that, is probably needed for the entire group, I'll send an email and say, hey, somebody asked this rule, thought it was a really good question. Just want to make sure everybody's aware. And then we will just add it to this document that everybody will have. So if anybody has any questions, I certainly have no problem taking them right now. You guys can either feel free to use the chat period. There's a little chat in here, or you guys can just certainly unmute yourself and ask. If not, feel free to leave the meeting. I'm going to stop recording it. You guys can go, and then you'll get an email from me with this document, and then we'll kind of just move forward with getting ready for August 3rd.
Dan.
Yes.
Did you have the second kid yet?
I did not have the second child yet. My wife and I were actually in the hospital the last 24 hours. We got back late last night because she now has kidney stones on top of the pregnancy. We're going to go in on Wednesday if we don't have the baby beforehand, and she'll be induced. So we're going at 6 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. So we will have a second child by midday Wednesday.
Well, good luck with everything.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you again for everything you're doing.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Hey, Dan, it's Tony from Penn Sports Radio. Is there anything specific that we in media should be should be thinking about? I mean, you know, a lot of times, you know, especially we're doing broadcasts, we try to be there, you know, a couple of hours before game time to set up. Is there anything we should keep in mind? And then the other question was about temperature taking. Is that something that we're going to do on our own, or is it going to be done at the field as well?
It's going to be on your own, only because we just had too many moving parts to be able to have, you know, I didn't want to put a field director in the responsibility of, you know, taking temperatures when they're really just volunteers. So on the form, it does ask before you guys come, take your temperature, and then you just say, yes, it was below the 100.4 mark that you know, the CDC is putting out. The first part of your question, though, is I did collect rosters from every team, and you guys as the media would get those. So I know what games you guys are coming to. Certainly you guys can email me, you know, ahead of time and just say, hey, we're doing this game. You guys will have the rosters. You're welcome to go to the fields. The media is welcome to go to any game and all games that you guys want to be at. You know, if there's a site that you guys aren't aware of and you want to check out early to set up, certainly good with me. You know, you guys have all the reign. I do ask, though, that, and I'm asking all the media to fill out that form too. So you guys are on the email. I made sure that I put Scott on there. So you guys will have that address. So if you're going, whatever, you know, days that you're going to games, that you guys can fill it out real quick. Just say, hey, we're good, just so that we can kind of keep a track that everybody who is there, you know, is in good health and you know, should be there. So hopefully that answers everything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I would ask is how far ahead would we be able to get the rosters?
I actually have I have probably 29 of the 32 teams, so I'm only waiting on a few. So I'm going to compile them in one large packet, and then we have a sponsor who's actually going to take the packet and print off like 50 copies for us. So you'll have a physical copy in hand, and I will email you one. I would say no later than probably about Tuesday, because I'm going to have everything done before Wednesday. So you'll have it in the next 48 hours.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, no problem. Awesome. Well, if nobody else has anything, I'll end the meeting. Again, I really appreciate everybody taking, you know, an hour out of the time. This again is recorded, so if anybody even wants to share this with parents, with your teams, you're more than welcome to. I will send the link out of the video recording, as well as I will send. I'm going to post the video on the website that we're using too. So you guys feel free to use this as kind of a guide for anybody that you guys think should see the video, or that may, you know, have any questions or whatnot. So again, I appreciate it.